go. This is Tyler James with Comics Launch, and I am excited to be streaming live here. We have a great topic for today. We're going to be talking about ways to expand the distribution of your comics and make more sales on and off Kickstarter. So this should be a fun topic today. And to join me on this one, I have a special guest. My guest today is an accomplished designer, storyboard, and comic book artist. His film and TV credits include Lovecraft Country, Fantasy Island, Bob's Burgers, Lego, Guardians of the Galaxy, Despicable Me 2, and many more. And his comic book work has been featured in Heavy Metal magazine. He's also the publisher of Asylum Press, which is an indie graphic novel and comic book publisher that produces work in the horror, sci-fi, and action genres. Welcome to Comics Launch, Frank Forte. Frank, how you doing, my friend?
Great, Tyler. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. You reached out to me about a topic that I know is something that you're excited about, and so we're going to dive all into this. But before we sort of dive in to the topic of potentially some overlooked distribution channels, I wanted to just sort of pull back at a high level. You're someone who's built a career out of your artistic talents, and I'm sort of curious, how important is it that a creator has and an artist has multiple streams and sources of income and sales channels and ways that they drive revenue from their creative work?
Yeah, I think something I've always done, and even like I started publishing when I was like 19, and I learned about the distribution system of Diamond. Back then there was Capital City, there was Heroes World, there was probably about 10 or 15 distributors, big and small, and you'd use all of them, and they would take everything from comics to art prints to merchandise or whatever, and they distribute it out to the stores, retailers, convention sellers. So I kind of learned how the system worked. So I've always been trying to find new ways to distribute all sorts of products, right? So I feel, yeah, you need to have your website, you need to have a storefront, you need to have, I put order forms in the back of my comics where the people could do it mail order, or they could go to the website. And then wholesale distribution, basically I like to be in as many retail locations as I can, because not just comic stores, but other smaller retailer, gift shops, weird horror shops. There's all sorts of places that will carry comic books that are traditional comic book retailers. And it's a matter of finding them. And now with the internet, it's definitely a lot easier with sites like Tundra. But yeah, I think it's important to be, widely dispersed.
Very, very good. Very good. Now, we talk a lot on this show about Kickstarter. And so this is definitely not a episode that is anti-Kickstarter by any means. And in fact, you have a Kickstarter project that's running now. You've launched several projects over the past couple of years. So how important is the Kickstarter crowdfunding to your overall strategy, and sort of where do you see it fitting in for you personally?
Yeah, well, I think it's real important. I mean, even though we have Diamond distribution through Diamond, and we're going to be working with Lunar and a lot of other smaller distributors, we still raise a lot of money doing Kickstarters. And I found that there are some people that just want to buy their comics from Kickstarter. And I in my surveys, I'm like, hey, would you guys be into pre-ordering through your comic store, Asylum Press Comics? And a lot of them say no, that they do just want to kickstart, which is fine. I mean, I think it's cool. Maybe they just don't have access to a comic store. They're living way out in the middle of nowhere. Who knows why? But for that reason, you're reaching people on Kickstarter that you might not reach in comic stores, or they might not see you. Oh, you got a pre-order. It comes to the store. It's sold out. It's gone. Stores aren't going to reorder it, so they'll never have a chance to get it. There's all sorts of reasons why you'd be in a comic store, but someone might not see it, right? So then with Kickstarter, I found that when I look at who's pledging, is it from my newsletter? Is it past backers? A lot of it is brand new backers that found me through Kickstarter. So Kickstarter's pushing people out, pushing my campaign out to possible readers is a way I reach new readers. And it's like the majority of sales come from that. So it is important to be out on Kickstarter. I think you're finding a lot of new potential readers and backers every time you put your stuff out on Kickstarter. Um,
Absolutely. And I also feel like for some of the stuff that you've been doing where you're working with a number of different creators, that like Kickstarter really is an easy platform where you can funnel different people's fan bases towards one project, and then people can support it at all levels, from your pledge just to support it without a reward, all the way up to your highest levels, which you can make available as well.
yeah.
So that it's definitely cool. While we're talking Kickstarter, do you want to sort of plug and share a little bit about the current project that you have on the
Yes,
platform?
so this is we're kickstarting 4 books. It's Vampire Macabre, Vampires, and Fearless Dawn. Horror Comics is the name of the project. A lot of people just kickstart one book. As a publisher, we have a bunch of books always in production. So when our last few Kickstarters, we funded multiple books. There's a few publishers out there that do that as well. It's a little more complicated. There's a lot more books and a lot more ways to fund, but just because we have a bunch of books in production at the same time, it's hard for us to just do one book, fund it, deliver it, then do another book. Like there's just it takes too long to do that. So we figured we'll fund a bunch of titles. So Vampire Macabre is an anthology, but there's 3 new characters: Nosferazix, Zephyra, which is like a Mad Max vampire, and the Crypt, which is one of Tim Vigil's new kind of vampire characters. So they are, even though they're anthologies, they are stories that will have some continuity and longer stories that will come out. Steve Mannion, a Fearless Dawn book is, I mean, if you guys know Steve Mannion's work, he's worked for a bunch of companies, Marvel, DC, he's done Batman Black and White, he's worked for Albatross. But Fearless Dawn is a book we've published over the years. And, Steve Mannion's work is just phenomenal. If you haven't seen it, he's just one of those old school cartoonists, comic book creators that writes, draws, letters, colors, does everything himself. And, he just likes to do his thing his way. And we like to publish it. So it's just a unique opportunity to fund a unique creator. And then the Vampires book, we're working with Steve Baines, who worked with The Haunted Horror. He did all those books with Yo Books, with IDW, and he came to me with Vampires, which is a bunch of stuff they were going to put out, but IDW decided to not continue the series. So I'm like, hey, let's scan this stuff, touch up the color. All this stuff is scanned from the original 1950s pre-code horror book, so we have to do a lot of touch up to try to get these pages to look good and be printable. So it's just a curated collection of pre-code vampire tales from a bunch of different titles put together with a little intro and stuff. And then a lot of the add-ons and stuff are just like all of the Asylum Press backstock. Oh, we also have, I should say, we have some enamel pens, and these we've already kind of produced, so we've got them back from the factory. So we're doing, we always have a bunch of, merchandise. Like these are little enamel pins that I do, and we just got them back from the factory, so they're already funded and produced, but we're just using Kickstarter to help fund them and get them out to new people. But these are very cool kind of collectible pins. Then we have some brand new stickers. So we're always doing we're always trying to kind of do other types of merchandise with our books. These are with Vampires. We also did a collection of pre-code horror postcards, so you can actually mail these to people and put a little thing on the back, and there's a little blurb about what the title is. But we did a whole set of these pre-code horror postcards, and this is like another comic book item, but it's merch. So we like to dabble in other types of merch and kind of get the stuff out there. So we're kind of always doing stuff, comics and other stuff in there too as well. But that's pretty much the pitch, and you can look at, there's a couple of not safe for work Kickstarter exclusive covers on there, and if you missed a bunch of our back issues, we have digital, we have the stickers, we have some stretch goals of free stickers and posters and all sorts of stuff. I mean, there's a lot to it, and there's a lot there. I know some people would be like, it's a confusing campaign and there's so much, but we tend to make a lot of money with add-ons. and add-ons are all our backstock from 20 years of publishing. So it tends to, people are like, oh, I've never seen this stuff before. I want like everything. So add-ons are a big part of the income when you look at it later.
Yeah, it really is powerful, and it's one of the ways where your campaigns can build over time. And this is something that is unique to Kickstarter in that as these series develop and go on, we can see campaigns, in terms of both backer count potentially, and then many times funds raised that goes up as opposed to down, which, as you know from the direct market, it's one of the most grueling things is just seeing your numbers wither, your order numbers wither as the series progresses. But the fact that for most Kickstarter creators, your backlist is always available makes that so that they don't necessarily see that same reluctance to people jumping on as a clean jumping on point. And as you said, we also do see, in addition to returning backers, we see new people discovering our books and with every single launch. So
and you have distribution through Diamond and into bookstores too as well with your Cthulhu books and everything, right?
Correct. We have Diamond distribution, and then we actually also like we publish our books sort of and send our books directly to Amazon and sort of sell through Amazon fulfillment by Amazon. Which is basically us just sending product directly to Amazon's warehouse, and as it sells, Amazon takes care of it. So that is, and for the Cthulhu brand especially, that is a huge place where that generates sales every single day. And now we're sort of in the holiday sales season, so the important thing is I just keep tabs on what our inventory levels are, right, so that we're not missing out on any sales.
Now you do that through Diamond Books, or you do that directly through Amazon?
Yeah, I do that directly through Amazon. And what's nice about that is, it doesn't include a third middleman component. So,
right.
So it's literally as simple as we create a listing for our own unique product on Amazon and send the product to them, and if it sells, it sells.
Totally.
The challenge at Amazon is that it's not it's a meritocracy, in that the way that you get products to sell on is you need to sell products on Amazon, and sales is the way that you rank on their algorithm, that you get recommended, and etc. And so we've been lucky enough to get a few books that sell consistently. And so sort of like, if you can get the thing to sell consistently, then they'll keep selling consistently. And it's among like the most consistent sales platform that we have.
Right.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, we have, I've tried to do some stuff direct on Amazon. I wouldn't say I have a lot of sales there. Maybe I'm not doing something right, but for our book distribution, we go through Diamond book distributors, and they get the stuff out to indie bookstores, which isn't a huge market, but if you're doing good stuff through Barnes and Noble or Books a Million, I mean, it's a good way to get that stuff out there.
Yeah. So let's I guess let's get into this question. And so, I mean, you brought up an interesting topic of, for the person that is a publisher and just an independent creator working on one project, but a publisher working with teams and suites of projects. One way to make crowdfunding work is to combine those projects into bigger sort of combination launches, as you've done at Empire Macabre and the others. The other sort of issue that some creators are having is just like, how many launches is too many launches for your Kickstarter, for your Kickstarter audience. And, so I guess one question is like, why is it important for creators that do make, like do well when they launch on Kickstarter? Why would you say that crowdfunding alone, isn't enough, or that you shouldn't only be focusing on the Kickstarter platform?
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, I guess it comes from being, using distributors and getting stuff out there on a wholesale level for so many years, I don't really want to ever give that up. And I think it's important to be in retail locations. Some Kickstarter people are, they're just against it, or they're like, we don't need comic stores, we don't need distribution, and we just want to kickstart it. I guess that works. I guess there's a point to it because you're getting full retail price for your comics, sometimes more. Sometimes people are selling comics for 10, 20, and $30 a piece. I mean, I get it. You'll make more money, but I feel like if you can get the mindset of doing, because most of those people I notice they're doing digital print on demand books, and the cost of their book is like sometimes $4 each,
Yeah.
$5 each. I'm like, that's way too much. Like, if you just committed to an offset print run, you could get your books for like less than $1 a piece. And yeah, sure, maybe your minimum is 1,000 or 2,000, but start thinking about really moving those. Like, some people, oh, I only printed like 500, or I only printed 300. In my opinion, if you want to think big, you should be doing print runs of 2,000 of your books offset, and start getting those in the hands of retailers, whether it's on consignment or having them buy them at 50% or 60% off. You should really be able to make money on a comic selling it at a 60% discount, which is what most distributors will want, whether it's Diamond, Lunar, even Fair. You're selling it at 50% off. So let's say it's a $10 book, you're selling it for 5. The distributor is always going to take about 15. So you're really at a 60 or 65% discount. So you've got to be able to make money at selling it for, what is that? Through $4, $3.50.
Yeah.
You got to get the book for, say the book is $1, you're selling it for $3.50 wholesale. You're selling it for $5 at some cases direct to market, and then $10 you're selling it on your website.
Yeah.
It's something you got to kind of wrap your head around. And a lot of people, they're just focused on the Kickstarter, and they don't think about the wholesale cost. And then when they go back to sell it wholesale, they're like, oh, $3.50, it cost me $4, I'm losing money. So you got to kind of start thinking about the offset print run instead of the print on demand print run where it's digital. Think about an offset run. Sure, you got to think about storage of the books, but you got to think about, and there's other micro distributors out there now too, like Powerhouse Distributing, Comics Mainstream, and Comics Distro, which I'll talk about. These guys are distributing all sorts of indie books. And yeah, their deal is they don't pay you outright, so you have to send them a box of books. But I always send them about 100 or 200 books straight from the printer, and I'm like, here, get these into stores, get these on the shelves. These guys also do conventions, so I'm like, my books are going to appear at conventions, like in the Pacific Northwest. They're in Northern California and Florida. I'm like, I know my books are going to be at these tables in these shops, and he's going to be going like store to store with these books. So in my opinion, because I do print runs of 3,000 or 4,000, I just send these guys books. And those are like, they're smaller distributors, so they get those. And sure, not everyone can do that, but maybe send them 20 books, or maybe send them 50, or some small amount that someone else is working for you. So that's kind of what I think people should try to wrap their heads around, is start getting quotes for an offset print run and try to get your books cheaper if you can.
Yeah, and that definitely is the thing. I mean, I guess Kickstarter does allow you to play in the, hey, I can spend $4 or $5 to print a book, and if I can get 15 to 20 for it on Kickstarter, plus have some high-end options where you're doing that, like, you can make that work, and you can keep doing that, and you can actually have some profit left over at the end of that. But that tends to cut off most of the other distribution where you do have to give up a percentage of the, and usually it's as you said, at least 50% of what cover price can be. And so the only way to address that is to expand those print runs and go higher, so that you get your cost significantly lower. All right, so let's dive in a little bit more on these alternative forms of distribution and retail sales. Now, we we talked about Diamond, and so we're not really going to talk about has been the main one. And
Right.
then you had also mentioned Lunar distribution, which has sort of come on pretty quickly. And I know was it DC that jumped to Lunar from Diamond, and then Lunar is
Yeah.
now expanded, and I think Scout distributes non-exclusively with them.
Yeah.
So that,
Right.
I think that's one of the things that some of these distributors there's and you want to make sure that you're playing the exclusivity or non-exclusive game. But I think most of these distributors are non-exclusive, meaning you can be with multiple of them. So have you started distributing your stuff through Lunar?
Yeah, we just kind of signed a deal with them. We're not in their catalogs yet, but we just started, and it's non-exclusive, and they're going to carry a lot of our back stock and some of our merchandise. So it'll be interesting to see, how that plays out. I know that Lunar wasn't looking for new publishers for a while, but I think now they are. They want to expand, like who they distribute and what they distribute. So if you're a small publisher, I mean, I would reach out to them and see. I know that some distributors don't want to take you if you're too small. Like if you're a Kickstarter and you publish one title and it comes out twice a year, I don't know if that rate works for them, but you
Mhm.
should reach out anyway. The other distributor that a lot of people are signing with is Universal, and they're up in Canada. If you haven't heard of them, DC just signed with them. They distribute Dynamite, I think, Source Point, maybe Scout, Aftershock, I think a bunch of other smaller distributors, but they're all also looking to expand, and they're also expanding into the United States. So where they were just a Canadian distributor, now they're going to be expanding into the States, where a um, they were mainly a gaming distributor. They distributed games, tabletop games, dice, and sports cards. They
Hmm.
expanded into comics a little bit more, a little bit into the merch. Now they want to do toys. So I think that's another way of reaching out to them if you're an indie person and just seeing if they'll take your stuff. Um, for other comic books, I was saying if you guys look them up, it's Comics Distro. I think they're in the Pacific Northwest. Comics Mainstream, they're Pacific Northwest. Comic Distro, I think, is Northern California. Comics Mainstream is interesting because they're bringing back the comics rack, and they're putting comics into comic shops, bookstores, cannabis shops, and you're kind of like getting these comics into places that people normally might not see them. Powerhouse Distro is another one. You can look them up on Instagram. They're in Florida, and they're also taking a bunch of indie guys. So it's definitely something to look into. And those are the comic book places. But there's another one that I started using about a year ago, and this is the most interesting one, I think. They're called Fair. It's FAIRE.com. And what they are is a wholesale distribution site that was mainly for, like, I don't know, retail shops, products, yeah, wellness. You wouldn't think like, oh, you'd look at it and go, well, comics wouldn't sell here, right? I've sold over $8,000 worth of stuff at a wholesale level over the past like year and a half with
Hmm.
these guys. So once you get in there are a lot of retailers that want to buy unique, weird items. It's almost like this is a distribution platform to indie shops all over the world. Like, not just like, you're not going to get to Hot Topic and these bigger brands. This is like an indie shop distribution channel, right?
Yeah.
So if you're a creator and you look at it, you'll go, oh, there's like wellness, it's feel good, it's books. It's like, I wouldn't fit in here. Don't think that. It's not true. I sell a ton of stuff on this site. And the other cool thing is, like, let's say you're a comic book creator that also makes stickers and weird enamel pins and other merchandise. This is
The
the
financial
place.
incentives give members discounts on services that can further enhance their comic
Yeah,
careers.
this is the place.
If you'd like to learn more about what
Is that
CPI
coming for
offers,
me?
please watch the next video. If you'd like more information about joining CPI, please visit the website listed
that me or you?
There we go. So I think that was you, but I could be wrong. But I thought it was coming through my headphone here. So yeah, I mean, I just pulled up Fair, and this is again something that I hadn't heard of until you brought it up. But one of the first books I see here was actually I think it was a web comic, but also it's one of the more successful series that I on Kickstarter. Check please, and so it's clear they're distributing this book here as well, which is
So their
very interesting.
terms
So can you explain a little?
Yeah, how it works.
Yeah, explain a little bit about how it works.
So on Fair, you go on there.
From I guess from a creator's perspective.
Yeah, obviously you have to sell at 50% off to the stores. So if you have a $10 book, you have to offer it for $5. They want it at least 50% off. And then how Fair works is the first sale they make, they take a 25% commission, which would seem like a lot, but it's only for the first order for that store. So it's kind of like they pay for that. That's how they make a little bit of their money. So the first order you're selling it for 75% off, and you'd be like, oh my God, that's too much. But after that, it drops to 15. And if you bring any retailers that you already have to Fair, they don't take any commission. So it's different tiers for different types of retailers. So if you could bring like 50 retailers to Fair, they're not going to take any commission. And they also have a thing where for a long time, they're paying for shipping. So the retailer is getting free shipping from Fair. So it's also an incentive for retailers to order. You don't pay for it, they don't pay for it. Now, a lot of times when you ship to a distributor or a retailer, either you're paying for it or they're paying for it. Here, Fair pays for it. So it's kind of a cool, I don't know how long that's going to go on for, but it's kind of a cool little incentive. I feel even with that discount, and normally if it's 50% plus the 15, it's 65%. I'm still making money because I can get my stuff printed cheaply, right?
Yeah.
So it works out. Plus, I'm getting into all these unique, weird, eclectic stores, especially horror shops all over the country that probably don't use Diamond or Lunar or anywhere else. They just want, and believe it or not, I've sold a ton of comic books and graphic novels to these places that they're not comic shops. So don't think that you can't sell comics to non-comic book shops, because you can. And then your other merch, like say you're a person that does, in a lot of Kickstarter places, you do t-shirts or you do enamel pins or stickers or cards. Like this is a great place to sell all that stuff where you couldn't sell that through Diamond, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, and so are you waiting until the like how does an order actually come through? It comes through you for there, and then are you shipping directly to the store? Are you shipping product to Fair and then they
so
distribute to the retailer? How does that work?
you can put up all your merch. You can also do pre-orders where you're like, hey, I'm going to take 3 months to do these pre-orders. So you can collect pre-orders. It doesn't work the same as Diamond. I've gotten some, but it's not like you don't get huge orders. Let's say you have a Kickstarter, and your Kickstarter is going to run for like a month. Put up a pre-order for the same book on Fair and see if you get pre-orders in that same period. The store will order your merch. You ship directly to them, and then you get paid maybe, I think as soon as they accept the order, you get paid. So it's not even 30 days. It's pretty fast where you get the money directly into your bank account. So that works pretty good. And, I'm always throwing in extra stuff and samples, and you want to make this retailer happy so that they order more stuff. But yeah, you look at it and go, oh, it's just clothing and food and like weird stuff, or like, like wellness stuff, but it's really a place for everyone. And that's what turned me off at first. I'm like, my stuff isn't going to sell here. I'm not going to, fit in, but hey, I sell. And I think everyone, and I know a lot of other artists, especially artists that sell, jewelry or just weird merch, they're getting on here and they're like, oh my God, I'm starting to sell stuff. So I think everyone should check it out. And
Yeah.
if they can't get on
Um,
there, I could give out
it's
my email. Sometimes you have to, I got in just by submitting, but sometimes they might want a referral and just, everyone that, if I refer somebody, I get $200. So everybody on there that starts referring people, you get a $200 payment. So if you can't get in, I could give you out my email. I'll refer people. And if you get in, yeah, okay, I get 200, but so can you if you refer more people there. You know what I mean? So
right.
in that case,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. We'll
there's
make sure
also,
that we link up to your stuff so that if anybody needs
um,
a referral link, they'll send it. You can send it
yeah,
their
totally.
way. Um, yeah, very cool. Cool. I mean, so this is an option as well. Any other distributors or options for
Yes.
selling stuff that you found that more people might want to check out?
Yeah. So like there is. So once I found Fair, I was like, hey, so there must be other wholesale distributors out there, right? And sure enough, when I started looking, there are quite a few. So another one is tundra.com. So it works pretty much the same way. Tundra.com is just another wholesale site. And I think I forget where they're based out of. Tundra might be based out of Australia or something. But it's another
Mm.
wholesale site where it works the same way as Fair. And the thing is, once you get your catalog into Fair, I would say focus on maybe getting 10 or 20 products. You can then download an Excel sheet from Fair and upload that Excel sheet to these other sites. So instead of doing it one at a time, once you have this Excel doc, you can just start mass uploading stuff. So Tundra is another one. Another one is Creoate, which is CREOATE.com. And they're based out of Europe. So if you want to try to hit these European gift shops and stores, put your catalog up onto Creoate. And, I've gotten a few sales from there, but overall, I would say that Fair is the main place I get my orders. These
Hmm.
other sites I've tried, and I would suggest trying them, but for some reason I haven't got the orders that I have on Fair. Um, Hello Abound is another one, and I think Abound is somehow connected to Shopify. I think Abound is Shopify's wholesale site, and they're a little bit more difficult to get into. Like I've submitted twice. I told them I'm on Fair. I showed them my site, my storefront, and for some reason they rejected me. So I don't know what's up with that. That's a little bit harder to get into.
Hmm.
But that's another one. IndieMe, INDIEME.com is another wholesale site. And, it's 100% handcrafted, made in the USA and Canada. I think IndieMe is women owned, like women, by women. So I think they support women creators and stuff like that. So, just it's another site to think about. And then there's another one I just got into. And then I guess another thing, Launch Grow Joy is a site that kind of helps people get on other wholesale marketplaces. So if you go to Launch Grow Joy, they'll show you. There's another places: Bulletin, IndieMe, Tundra, Handshake, Mabel, Fashion Go. I mean, there's Trada. I mean, there's a ton of them when you start getting into it. Oh, Juniper, that's another one. Juniper Market is one that I just launched. And some of these places, they'll really help you out. Like Juniper, I've got like over 300 items maybe on Fair, and Juniper was like, "Oh, just give us your thing. We'll help you set it up." So I didn't even have to do much with them. They helped. They took my Excel doc and had a program that sourced all my images from Fair, and then like in a matter of days, like my whole catalog was up there, and they're like, we'll do it for you. So a lot of these places will help you transfer your catalog from one wholesale place to another. So you just got to kind of reach out to these people and say, hey, can you help me out? You know, I'm having trouble with your interface or something. You know, they'll help you. But again, Juniper,
Yeah, that's awesome.
I just got on. I haven't really had too many sales there yet, but I'm new. But the main thing, it's fair. But just so people know, there are many opportunities out there to get into retailers' hands. So it's just something to think about.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it. I guess one of the questions I might have would be, you know, managing this stuff. It seems like the more places that you're in, the more potential places that you have orders coming in, the more of a challenge it is to keep track of all of the different orders and when they come in and how they come in. Has that been a challenge for you?
I mean, there was 1 week where I probably spent 3 full days packing and shipping wholesale orders, right? So it's kind of like Kickstarter fulfillment where you have to box stuff up. And then another thing I should say, I wanted to bring this up. Here's a print that I sell, right? This is for retail. Just so people know, when you sell a print to retail, you've got to bag and board it. So this is easy. This is just a magazine comic book bag and board with a print. I put a little, you know, certificate and a thing in there. But when you ship to retailers, you have to make sure that it's retailer friendly, meaning it's got to be able to withstand people looking at it, flipping through it. You can't just send the print there. A retailer doesn't want that. They want it to be a little bit more protected. And the same thing with these prints. These are 12 by 18. I get these bags and boards at Clear Bags. And, you know, it's a little bit thicker, but it's, you know, it's set up for a retailer to display it in their store where people will look through it and it's not going to display the print. So it's just something else to think about when you know, display for retailers. You know, when you're doing prints, there's a little bit of an extra step. Now with comic books, I'll just ship it. Sometimes like this. Sometimes I'll bag and board it if it's a signed edition. I'm not sure. Like I go back and forth. Like if it's a non-retailer, they'll probably appreciate a comic book bagged and boarded for their shop. So sometimes I do it. It's a little extra work, but you know, I'm just not sure how these non-comic book shops will display this if they're not used to displaying it. So protecting it's a little better. And then also for retail, like for stickers, sometimes you can do like a 5 order minimum. So there's 5 stickers here in a bag, and that's kind of how I ship it to retailers. So there's a little extra learning on, and you can watch videos on how to prepare stuff for retailers. I think when you ship to a comic store or Diamond, it's easy. You just ship your comics. But for other merch, there's maybe an extra learning curve or an extra step that you should think about.
Yeah, I guess one of the questions that I would have is, does everything need a barcode? And I wonder if that might vary based on where you're shipping it. But, you know, I know Diamond is very peculiar about how your comics are labeled and numbered and what the barcode has on it.
Right.
So
yeah, so Diamond and Lunar require barcodes. Fair does not, which makes it easier for, you know, if you have a barcode and an ISBN, sure, fine, put it on there. But I think retailers most of the time have their own barcode sticker system, and they'll put it on. And who knows, like maybe they might even want to put a different price on or upcharge it. I really don't care if that happens. I'm not too concerned about that. But yeah, Fair and all these sites, I've never had them ask me for a barcode or an ISBN, which is kind of cool because if you're indie, you probably don't, or you're not probably not spending on barcodes or making that a part of your process.
Yeah.
But yeah, as for shipping, right? If more orders started coming in, I might have to hire somebody or get somebody to do it. Right now, I do it mostly myself. My wife sometimes helps me, but I'm able to manage it. It's not too crazy yet, but eventually, yeah, you might have to sub that out to somebody that does wholesale. I'll mention one more site, and this is more of an artist-friendly distributor. You might not know about them, but they're called Dispersed, Disburst. And they mainly distribute what I would call designer figures, vinyl toys, kaiju toys, sofubi, and stuff like that. But they also distribute enamel pins, stickers, and other merch. I mean, it's mainly for art toys. But if you're a creator that does enamel pins as well, like cute enamel pins and stuff like that, Dispersed might take you on and sell your merch. Maybe not your comics because they don't really distribute too many comics or books. But if you're looking to get stickers, enamel pins, or vinyl toys, Dispersed is somewhere to approach. And they're really artist friendly, and they don't care if you're, it's connected to a TV show or not. It could just be your artist merch, and they'll get it out there for you. So it's just another place to, if you're trying to get into retailers' hands, that they're pretty cool about that stuff.
This is awesome, Frank. I think you're giving us a whole bunch of channels and retailers to for our creators to research and potentially see if there's a good fit for it. Like, I guess, do you have any tips for before you start submitting, like, trying to locate to see if they have stuff like what you produce, or but it also sounds like you sort of took a chance on a few things, even if most of what you were seeing wasn't specifically like your stuff.
Yeah, I think I reached out to some of those people. Like on Fair, like you need a retailer account in order to look up what other retailers are selling. Like as a vendor, I can see what retailers are. Yeah, I can't really see what other vendors are selling unless you sign up as a retailer. Maybe you just sign up as a retailer to have that access, right? Which is kind of weird because I really couldn't see what other vendors were selling. I just said, I'm just going to put my stuff up there and see what happens. And I talked to somebody that was my Fair brand manager, and I said, hey, I sell like horror, dark stuff, dark art, creepy, cute stuff. Will that sell? And they're like, oh, yeah, we have a lot of retailers that want that stuff. I'm like, okay, that's all I needed. So I guess I would say for Fair, I would say have it in stock and ready to ship. If you're not too familiar with like pre-orders, or I would say make sure you have it made, because the retailers, when they order it, they're going to want to get it pretty soon. They're not going to want to wait for 6 months for a Kickstarter. You could do a 6-month pre-order. Sure. You could try that and then like coordinate it with your Kickstarter when you think it's going to be ready. But I would say try with like any back stock or any stuff you have in stock and see what happens and get used to it. Get used to the shipping, make sure it's protected. And, see how it goes. But I would say everyone should focus on Fair first before those other places, because that's where the majority of my sales are coming from. Before you waste your time with there's like 10 others. But, familiarize yourself with the wholesale distribution chain and know that there are other ways to get out there as an indie creator, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And so there's some tips, some really good tips here. One is knowing that these things are out there is an extra incentive to try to drive up your total production costs and lower your per margin cost per item, so that you can afford to give these bigger discounts and get the exposure of wider retail. And like, have you found that like reorders have been a thing? Because that's one of the things that whenever I've worked sort of directly with retailers, the nice thing about working with them is that if you have a book that connects with them, they will put in multiple orders and they'll come back for more. So I'm just curious if have you through Fair established any relationships with retailers or heard from them or had reorders and things like that? Has that been?
Yeah, there are reorders. It's not as big as a diamond reorder, and you can put a minimum. Like, I think it's a good idea. I think before the economy got a little tougher, it was normal for a vendor on Fair to have a $250 minimum, right? So a store would have to order $250 of your merch before you place the order. This is kind of like a thing that I learned with people that wholesale direct to stores. They don't want to take the time to fill a $20 purchase order. They want to,
No.
if they're going to fill a box, they want it to be at least $250 so that it's worth their while. So with Fair, their indie, that's kind of dropped a little bit. Like they suggested I do $150, which I'm fine with. I mean, I would fill a $50 reorder. I really don't care. So especially in a tougher economy, it's good to like lower it. And if you're smaller, I'm sure people wouldn't mind fulfilling a $50, purchase order. But
Right.
yeah, reorders come in for, and then you realize, oh, that's selling. Maybe that's not selling, or maybe they had a hard time selling it, or sometimes they'll be like I had a 5 order minimum for certain things, and they were like, hey, can you move that down to 1? I really can't afford ordering 5 of that. So from the retailers, I'm like, oh yeah, maybe that is too much. So maybe you don't have to order 5, you can order just 1. So you change your minimums as retailers contact you and stuff. But it's a learning process, too.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this is great stuff here, Frank. I think you've given folks a lot to chew on. What else is coming up with you? Like we've got the current Vampire Macabre joint Kickstarter that's going.
Yep.
Is that going to be the last Kickstarter launch for 2022? And what do you have coming into 2023?
Yeah, I think so. I think now that Kickstarter, changed their, like they changed how you operate, right? So now you can have a Kickstarter, you can run it, and you can be in fulfillment. But if you've run at least 4 Kickstarters, you can now launch another Kickstarter and have at least a few in the fulfillment stage. So you don't have to wait this long time to launch another one. Now, as a publisher, I love that. I think that's a great system. They should have implemented it sooner, especially for people that have shown they can fulfill Kickstarters and they don't screw people over. So I think going ahead, we may get back to doing, a Kickstarter where it's one book and it's a little more simple. But the only reason we were doing multiple books is that, Kickstarter wouldn't let you run a new Kickstarter or launch it until the last one was fulfilled.
Right.
Makes it difficult if you have like 10 titles you want to do,
Absolutely.
So what we have coming up, I have a thing called Beyond Doomsday, which is a collection of stories I did in heavy metal. We've got some new Fearless Dawn books. I've got, Nosferazix, which is a vampire character, Zephyra. I've got this Mad Max type character. So Vampire Versus is a comic that I did in the 90s that I want to get back to. So I just have a ton of books that I'm going to be launching. So yeah, if people want to get on our mailing list, to go to asylumpress.com. You could see all our books. You could order our backstock, and definitely if you're out there and you want to support our Kickstarter, just look up Vampire Macabre, Vampires and Fearless Dawn. It'll come right up on Kickstarter, and you can check out our new books, fund our merch, and have access to our entire back catalog on there too.
Absolutely. And since I know there's some creators probably thinking it whenever I have publishers on, what's the process to work with you or to potentially have a project under the Asylum Press banner, or is that even something that you entertain or open submissions to, or how do you work with new creators at this point?
Yeah, we do sometimes, like Steve Mannion, Dwayne Harris, and there's other creators that we do work with. You can always send submissions through our website, or my email is asylumpresscomics@gmail.com. I mean, we'll look at stuff. We don't really publish too many other books besides our own currently, but as we expand, we are going to want to do that, because we did that more when we were publishing 2012 to 2018 or so. We were definitely looking at other people's. The thing is with like indie comics, and you probably know this too, even if you're with Diamond, it's really difficult to pull a decent profit. And sometimes people will sign with a publisher and go, hey, I signed with them, we sold their books, but we didn't get a check, we didn't make any money. And a lot of times, if you don't sell at least 5,000 to 7,000, there's not that much money left over. So if you're going to do 3,000 books, a 3,000 order. After printing, shipping, distributing, paying some people, there's not that much to distribute back to the creators. I mean, maybe a few $100s, 500. You've got to really be doing 7 to 10,000, which is really difficult as an independent creator, even through Diamond and comic shops. So the thing is, we'll publish books, but it's hard to say there's going to be a lot of money in the end to distribute. That's the hard thing. Even with you talk to Antarctic and stuff, the people that publish through them or other indie distributors, even Image, they'll say, well, we only sold 3,000 or 4,000 and we didn't get much of a paycheck. And the reality is, you've got to use it as like a stepping stone. You're getting your books out there. People are reading them. You're kind of building a fan base, but you're really not going to make much of a paycheck unless you do like a 10,000 pre-order. That's when you start seeing, oh, I can actually live on this. So it's just something to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just, I mean, it's a math problem more than anything else. When you have books that, usually the price that you're charging when you're talking single issues, you're capped out at $4.99. Most of the books going through the direct market aren't selling for more than that. And then you're getting that you're selling it for 60% off that. So, and then you're paying for the book and yeah, in
the end, right. There's not a big profit margin. I think this is another thing I wanted to touch on this. I'm glad you brought it up with selling, your comic to a retailer. Now, let's say you're on Kickstarter, your book is $10 or $15. Well, that's no problem for a Kickstarter backer. That's like common. But when you bring that book to a retailer and you go, and he's like, well, how much is the book retail? And you're like, well, it's 10, like for a 32-page comic.
Yeah.
Who's going to go, I can sell Marvel and DC all day for $4 or $5. Now I have this $10 indie book. How can I pitch this to my buyers? Or even 15. Some books are 15. I mean, maybe for a not safe for work cover or something like that. But that's the other thing is if you go into wholesale and your retail price for a 32-page book is 10, it's going to be a little bit difficult to pitch that to a comic shop. Now, maybe not for these retailers unfair because they're not used to that. They see an item, it's $10, $15. They'll just put it in. They'll be like, okay, they don't know that most floppies are $4 to $5 each. So in fair, I would say it doesn't matter as much. But comic shops, I hear it all the time. They're like, I would love to carry a Kickstarter book, but the retail price is 10 or 15. I can't put that next to a $5 Marvel or DC book. So that's another reason to try to get your costs down, or maybe have a separate cover that's a $5 book, that's a higher print run. I don't know, every Kickstarter person has to try to go in there and look at the numbers and start getting, wholesale printing and Transcontinental. They're in Canada. I would say that's the cheapest place that you could just approach them, get a quote. They'll do a print run of 2,000, see what it is and see if you can make it work. And you can even do, if you want to do multiple covers, they're not that much for like their minimum run for an alt cover is like 150 or 200. So let's say your main run is like 800, another smaller AB cover, 200, you're up to 1,200, put another 200 print runs. Pretty soon you're going to be up to 2,000, and your cost is probably going to be the same as if you did these $4 print on demand books. So you just got to like kind of breathe, get some quotes for offset, and figure out how to make it work with your crowdfunding, and be looking at this distribution method. And I would set out these indie guys, all these guys like Comics Distro, Comics Mainstream, and Powerhouse will carry any Kickstarter book. They'll just be like, we'll take it, we'll get it out there. Yep. So that's not going to be as difficult as like getting in with Diamond or Lunar or maybe Universal, because they'll want you to be a more established company. But for indie people,
and so just to circle back to that, because I think you talked about them a little bit for Comics Distro, Comics Mainstream, and Powerhouse Distro. Those are sort of your regional consignment sellers? Is that how that
Yeah,
works? So,
I guess I
so
would
you're
call.
sending them books on consignment, and then if they sell, they pay you. Is that how that works?
Yeah, right, right. And they're pretty regular. Like they pay me on time when they sell the books. But I like the fact that I'm getting my stuff into stores and they're out there pitching them and they're selling them at conventions. So I can
Yeah.
afford to do that because I'm doing higher print runs. And for me to send 100 or 200 books to each one of those is not a big deal. For other people, they may be tougher, but you don't have to send that many. Send 20 and see how they sell. If they sell 20,
Right.
you get paid, then send another 20. You don't have to send that many. You don't have to be that crazy about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's definitely something to for creators out there that are sitting on stacks of books from their Kickstarter campaigns from a couple of years ago, or even this last year, or they did an overprint, and they're wondering what else can I do with them. It
Right.
sounds like they're
Uh-huh.
3 emails away from potentially moving,
Yep.
getting some books out of their house, out into the world, and
Yep.
then down the line, some funding comes back. Definitely sounds like something that's worth experimenting with.
Uh-huh.
And
Absolutely.
to get some wider distribution.
Mhm.
Well, this is a great topic, Frank. I know this is going to be valuable to a lot of the listeners out there. What's the best way for creators to connect with you going forward?
I guess so. You can always follow me on social. I have a bunch of social accounts, but I'm Asylum Press at Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. Frank Forte Art is my Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, also TikTok on that one. So I try to keep them the same. And then I have a Frank Forte Comics on Instagram, which is all my comic work. And I just started a Frank Forte Storyboards, which is all my storyboard work from Bob's Burgers to Lovecraft Country. She-Hulk I worked on recently, and I'm going to be publishing, just putting up all the storyboard work that I've done. So I have multiple, accounts, and, anyone can reach me like through the websites if they want to like email me, and, I'll get that, or try to DM me. I check the social stuff, but always working on stuff. And recently I'll be at this convention. Decon Designer Con is coming up. It's in Anaheim. It's this weekend, and it's art, toys, collectibles. If you guys are in Southern California or want to come down, it's a really cool convention if you're into, art, toys, kaiju, designer figures, enamel pins. There's a pin and patch section. Funko Pops has a thing there. Paul Kaiju and all the people that do like, those designer figs. And it's also artists that do merch, like independent artists that aren't doing toys. They're selling their merch and their t-shirts and stickers. And then I'll be at LA Comic Con. That's early December at the LA Convention Center. I'll be there if you guys want to come down and see me in person. I do sketches, and I do sketches of people as Bob's Burgers and Rick and Morty characters and stuff, people like that.
Yeah,
So it's real big.
that does sound awesome. Sounds like a real treat at conventions for you. Well, thanks, Frank. You shared a lot of great links and
Yep.
resources and websites, and I know my audience is going to go do some research after listening to
Cool.
this. So I appreciate you cluing us into some alternative options for getting your books out there into the world.
Yep. Hopefully it helps. Thanks, Tyler. Appreciate it. And definitely, you guys, if you're not checking it out, check out the comics launch program. I was a member of it, and it definitely helped me build my audience. And there's tips and techniques and, ways to build your Kickstarter and crowdfunding campaigns, which is very helpful. Even though I had some experience, I did learn a lot from the programs, and networking with other creators too helps.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Frank. And did you get your comics launch pin yet? Did I send that? Did I send one out to you yet?
I don't think I got the pin yet, but if it's enamel pin, I'll definitely wear it, man. I'll
Oh
support
yeah,
it.
man. All right, I'll make sure you get the link, because we got to put one in your hands as well. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Frank. And we'll be watching your stuff on Kickstarter and beyond.
Thanks. Talk soon.
And for everyone else watching this live, thank you so much. And we can't wait to see what you launch next. Take care.